The deserts of the Middle East once buzzed with life. Millennia ago, in what is now southern Iraq, an astonishing civilization rose along the banks of the Euphrates River, known to scholars today as the Sumerians. These people built sprawling cities, pioneered early writing, and laid the groundwork for modern urban society. What set the Sumerians apart wasn't just their architecture or irrigation, but their revolutionary invention, cuneiform. Using wedge-shaped tools pressed into clay tablets, they recorded everything from grain deliveries to epic poetry. One of their most famous literary creations, the Epic of Gilgamesh, still fascinates historians today. These ancient Mesopotamians weren't working in isolation. Trade routes connected them to cultures as far as the Indus Valley and the Levant, exchanging goods like lapis lazuli, ivory, and spices. Their cities were cosmopolitan hubs where craftsmen, merchants, and priests mingled amid temple complexes and bustling port warehouses. Yet for all their progress, the Sumerians mysteriously vanished from the historical stage. Around 2000 BCE, their cities fell into decline, and their language disappeared from common use. What happened? The answers lie partly beneath the sand and partly in the sky. New geological research shows that this once fertile region experienced a drastic shift in climate. The rivers that had nourished their crops dried up, and salinization from over-irrigation left once rich soils barren. As agriculture failed, famine and conflict rose. The very innovations that made their civilization thrive, like large-scale farming, may have also hastened its downfall. The Sumerians aren't alone in their mysterious disappearance. Thousands of miles away, under the dense rainforests of Central America, lie the remains of the mighty Maya civilization. At their peak, the Maya constructed vast cities like Tikal and Calakmul, complete with observatories, ball courts, and towering stone pyramids. Unlike the Sumerians, the Maya were master astronomers. Their calendar systems were incredibly precise, and their understanding of celestial bodies rivaled that of much later societies. Their cities reflected cosmic alignments, and they tracked solar eclipses with astonishing accuracy. But by the time Spanish explorers arrived in the 16th century, many of these once grand cities were already abandoned and swallowed by vegetation. So what happened to the Maya? The answer is complex. While warfare and political fragmentation played a role, recent findings suggest prolonged droughts were a critical factor. Lake sediment cores show significant reductions in rainfall during key periods of Maya decline. Cities that relied on rain-fed reservoirs simply couldn't support their populations anymore. These disappearances challenge the common assumption that ancient civilizations only fell because of conquest. Sometimes the forces of nature, climate shifts, earthquakes, or volcanic eruptions, can bring down even the most resilient societies. A prime example lies beneath the Aegean Sea. The island of Santorini was once home to the Minoans, a Bronze Age culture that thrived on nearby Crete. The Minoans built palaces with flushing toilets, advanced drainage, and vibrant murals that still dazzle viewers today. Around 1600 BCE, the volcano under Santorini erupted with devastating force, one of the most violent eruptions in human history. The resulting tsunamis and ash clouds likely crippled Minoan ports and agricultural zones, throwing the civilization into disarray. Though the Minoans didn't vanish overnight, their influence declined dramatically. Crete fell under Mycenaean control not long after. Nature's fury had rewritten history. Even civilizations thought lost to legend are being rediscovered through archaeology and satellite imaging. In the Amazon rainforest, for example, what was once believed to be untouched wilderness is revealing its secrets. Beneath thick vegetation, LiDAR scanning has uncovered remnants of vast settlements, towns connected by causeways, complete with moats, plazas, and pyramids. These Amazonian cultures may have supported populations in the hundreds of thousands, far more than previously assumed. Rather than living in small, scattered tribes, these people engineered their environments, planting food forests and terraforming wetlands. Their cities were symbiotic with nature. Diseases brought by European explorers wiped out most of these civilizations before they were ever documented. As a result, their accomplishments were forgotten for centuries. But now researchers are reinterpreting the rainforest as a once thriving urban landscape, shaped by human hands. As more forgotten cultures are uncovered, one pattern emerges: environmental changes, whether drought, flood, or volcanic disaster, often play a pivotal role in societal collapse. And yet these societies were never truly primitive. They were innovators, builders, and problem solvers in their own time. Modern scientists are learning from these collapses. For instance, ancient water management systems in arid regions are being studied for sustainable techniques adaptable to today's climate challenges. The failures and triumphs of early societies offer a blueprint, not just of what to avoid, but what we can still learn. In the end, the past isn't gone. It's just waiting to be uncovered, beneath layers of soil, forest, and myth. In the shadowed depths of the Guatri Cave near San Felice Circeo, about 100 kilometers southeast of Rome, one of the most significant discoveries of recent decades has reshaped our understanding of Neanderthal life in Europe. Archaeologists, combining traditional excavation with modern analytical techniques, unearthed the fossilized remains of 9 Neanderthals, offering a rare glimpse into the population, structure, lifestyle, and environment of these ancient hominins. The Guattari Cave had long been known in paleoanthropological circles. In 1939, a Neanderthal skull was discovered there, an early hint that this cave was more than an ordinary geological formation. Decades later, a new team of researchers returned with advanced technology and a renewed sense of curiosity. Their excavations led to a monumental find: the skeletal remains of at least 9 individuals, both adults and juveniles, dating from approximately 50,000 to 100,000 years ago. These remains were not scattered randomly, but appeared to be distributed in a way that suggested a deliberate, long-term occupation of the site. The stratigraphy and sediment analysis confirmed that the bones had been sealed by thousands of years of cave collapse and sedimentation, preserving them in near-pristine condition. This makes the Guattari Cave one of the richest Neanderthal burial sites in the Mediterranean region. The anatomical features of the Neanderthals from Guattari are consistent with what we know of this subspecies of archaic humans. Heavy brow ridges, robust limb bones, and distinct cranial structures point to the powerful physiques and adaptive traits of a species well-suited to the cold, fluctuating climate of Ice Age Europe. CT scans and isotope analysis of the teeth and bones revealed details of their diet, which consisted primarily of meat from large herbivores, supplemented by foraged plants. Remarkably, fossilized animal remains were also found within the cave, including those of extinct elephants, rhinoceroses, and giant deer. These bones bore cut marks and fracture patterns consistent with tool use, suggesting the Neanderthals hunted and processed these large mammals for both food and materials. This co-presence of fauna and human remains indicates that the Guattari Cave served as both a dwelling and a butchery site. Neanderthal social organization, once thought to be primitive, is now being reevaluated thanks to discoveries like these. The presence of multiple individuals of varying ages points to a communal lifestyle, likely involving close family units, where patterns on teeth and bone damage suggest not only physical labor, but also instances of survival through injury, indicating a social support system where injured individuals were cared for by others. Carbon dating and pollen analysis have helped reconstruct the environment that surrounded the cave during Neanderthal occupation. Far from being barren tundra, the region would have been a mosaic of temperate forests and open plains, teeming with game and plant resources. This allowed the Neanderthals to maintain a semi-sedentary lifestyle, returning to favored sites like Guattari across generations. What makes this discovery particularly important is its contribution to understanding the Neanderthal extinction event. As Homo sapiens migrated into Europe roughly 45,000 years ago, Neanderthals began to vanish from the archaeological record. Genetic studies suggest that interbreeding occurred, but it remains unclear whether competition, climate change, or social dynamics led to their disappearance. The Guattari Cave offers new data points to test these theories. Modern DNA sequencing has confirmed that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens share a common ancestor, and between 1% to 4% of modern Eurasian genomes come from Neanderthals. Teeth from the Guattari individuals have been sampled for ancient DNA, and preliminary results show they were part of a genetically diverse population. This reinforces the idea that Neanderthals were not isolated or inbred, but part of a wider web of populations exchanging mates and ideas. Cultural evidence from the site adds further depth. Though stone tools recovered at Guattari are simple compared to those made by Homo sapiens, they display sophistication and function. There are signs of fire use, organized living spaces, and even ochre pigments, which may have been used for symbolic or cosmetic purposes. These artifacts hint at a cognitive world more complex than previously acknowledged. Guattari Cave is now considered a national treasure and a focus of multidisciplinary study. Teams of geologists, anthropologists, climatologists, and geneticists are collaborating to map not only the sequence of occupation within the cave, but also the broader patterns of Neanderthal life across Europe. New imaging techniques, such as ground-penetrating radar and photogrammetry, are being used to digitally preserve the site for future analysis. The story unfolding in Guattari Cave is one of resilience, adaptability, and ultimately mystery. The Neanderthals were not brutish cave dwellers, as once caricatured, but complex humans shaped by their environment and capable of cooperation, innovation, and care. Their legacy endures not just in bones and tools, but in our very DNA and in the questions they continue to raise about who we are and where we came from. With each unearthed skull or charred bone, we step further into their world, and in doing so, into our own ancient past. The Neanderthals of Guattari Cave are not lost. They are being rediscovered, one excavation at a time. In the heart of Plato's timeless dialogue, Critias lies a puzzling and alluring reference to a mysterious metal, orichalcum. Second only to gold in value, this fabled alloy was said to line the walls, temples, and inner sanctums of Atlantis, giving the city a radiant, reddish-golden glow. For centuries, scholars dismissed orichalcum as either myth or symbolic metaphor. But modern archaeological finds are beginning to suggest that this enigmatic material may have had a real-world counterpart. Orichalcum's first literary mention comes from Plato's 4th century BCE text, where he describes it as mined only in Atlantis and used to adorn the grand structures of the city. According to his account, the metal was used in the walls of Poseidon's temple and was so lustrous it sparkled like fire. While many believe this to be artistic embellishment, the intriguing mention persisted across ancient literature, including texts by Hesychius and Pliny the Elder. In 2015, a groundbreaking maritime discovery reignited debate over orichalcum's reality. Off the coast of Gela, Sicily, divers exploring a 2,600-year-old shipwreck recovered 39 ingots of an unusual metal alloy. Laboratory analysis revealed a blend of copper, zinc, and traces of nickel and iron, essentially a form of brass. Scholars immediately connected this composition to ancient descriptions of orichalcum. Brass, while common today, was a significant metallurgical achievement in antiquity. The process of combining zinc ore with copper requires high-temperature smelting and sophisticated knowledge of metallurgy. Ancient civilizations like the Greeks, Romans, and Etruscans mastered this technique, albeit on a limited scale. The ingots from Gela, dated to the 6th century BCE, represent one of the earliest known uses of this alloy in large quantities. But why was this metal associated with Atlantis? One theory posits that the rare reddish hue of early brass may have appeared exotic and otherworldly to the Greeks. Lacking knowledge of electroplating or advanced metallurgy, they may have believed this metal came from a mystical land beyond the known world. Its symbolic association with power, luxury, and sacred architecture fueled the legend. Chemical testing of the Gela ingots confirmed that the alloy was made using calamine, a zinc-containing mineral, and copper, a technique consistent with early brass production in the ancient Mediterranean. Trace elements like antimony and lead point to a high degree of craftsmanship and suggest a local, possibly Greek or Etruscan, origin. Ancient authors like Pliny the Elder further complicate the picture. In his Natural History, he writes that orichalcum had already disappeared in his time, suggesting it was rare or its production had been lost. This echoes the idea that orichalcum wasn't a single metal, but a lost technique or alloy that had once dazzled with its color and scarcity. Curiously, ancient coinage also holds clues. Several 5th to 3rd century BCE coins from Thrace and Macedonia have a distinctive reddish shine and chemical composition similar to the Gela ingots. This has led some researchers to argue that orichalcum was not confined to Atlantis myth, but actually circulated within early Mediterranean economies under different names. If orichalcum was indeed a high-zinc copper alloy, it would have stood out in a world dominated by bronze. Bronze, primarily made of copper and tin, was standard for tools and weapons. Orichalcum, on the other hand, would have been rare, decorative, and symbolically charged, ideal for elite settings and religious structures. Still, Atlantis remains elusive. Whether it existed as Plato described or served as an allegorical tale warning of hubris and decay, the inclusion of orichalcum in his narrative was no accident. It was a material designed to impress, to dazzle, and to symbolize the power and sophistication of a lost civilization, real or imagined. Some theorists propose that Plato drew inspiration from real places like Tartessos in southern Spain or the Minoan civilization of Crete, cultures that had both metallurgical prowess and enigmatic disappearances. Artifacts resembling orichalcum, including high-zinc alloys and luminous red-gold jewelry, have been uncovered in both regions. In the end, the question remains tantalizing. Was orichalcum a real substance, lost to time, a symbolic construct, or a little of both? The gala ingots, the reddish coins, and ancient metallurgical texts point toward a historical basis for the legend. Yet, like Atlantis itself, orichalcum straddles the line between fact and fable, between what was and what we want to believe once was. Today, researchers continue to analyze ancient shipwrecks and metallurgy sites across the Mediterranean, hoping to uncover more examples of this elusive alloy. Each find draws us closer to understanding how ancient peoples viewed materials, not just for their practical use, but for their aesthetic, economic, and even spiritual power. In the heart of Henan Province, China, where the Yellow River winds like a golden thread through plains rich with millennia of human history, lies the ruins of what may be one of East Asia's earliest cities. Known as the Shuanghuaishu site, this sprawling archaeological complex dates back to roughly 5,300 years ago, predating the Xia dynasty, China's earliest traditionally recognized state. The discovery of this walled city, complete with residential areas, ritual buildings, roads, and even drainage systems, is reshaping what we know about the rise of early Chinese civilization. Unearthed between 2017 and 2020, the Shuanghuaishu site covers over 1.2 million square meters. Its scale and complexity suggest not just a large population, but also a centralized administration capable of urban planning. Excavations have revealed stone and earthen walls enclosing the site, with gateways aligned to cardinal directions, hints of cosmological or symbolic significance in urban design. At the heart of the city was a large rectangular ceremonial platform. Nearby, archaeologists found clusters of buildings arranged in a symmetrical grid, evidence of pre-planned neighborhoods, each likely serving distinct social or political functions. Roads were lined with compacted earth and trenches for drainage, showing an early understanding of civil engineering. Artifacts found throughout Shuanghuaishu reflect a sophisticated material culture. Pottery, both utilitarian and ceremonial, was unearthed in abundance, including delicate painted jars and bowls adorned with abstract motifs. Many pieces show design elements unique to the settlement, suggesting a strong localized identity within a wider cultural network that included the Yangshao culture. Of particular note was the discovery of hundreds of jade items, including discs, axes, and ornaments. Jade held immense ritual value in Neolithic China, symbolizing purity, status, and connection to the heavens. These jade artifacts were often buried in ceremonial contexts, indicating that Shuanghuaishu was not just a habitation site, but also a center for religious or cosmological practices. Nearby pits contained traces of early sacrificial practices, carefully arranged animal bones, evidence of fire, and human burials with grave goods. One burial site included a young child surrounded by jade pieces, shell ornaments, and a carved wooden mask, pointing towards stratified social roles and possibly even early spiritual or shamanic leadership. Perhaps most intriguing was the presence of symbols carved into pottery shards and stone tools, simple but deliberate markings that some archaeologists believe represent a proto-writing system. These symbols, while not formal script, may have been used for clan identification, inventory marking, or religious communication, hinting at the cognitive and social complexity of the city's inhabitants. The city's strategic location near the Yellow River likely enabled agriculture, trade, and communication with surrounding regions. Excavations revealed remnants of millet fields and domesticated pig and dog bones, staples of the early Chinese diet. In this setting, Shuanghuaishu became a node in a growing network of Neolithic culture, possibly functioning as a ceremonial capital or early theocratic center. Stratigraphy within the site shows layers of rebuilding and expansion, suggesting a multi-generational occupation. Tools made of polished stone, bone, and antler suggest specialized industries and division of labor. Some workshops appear to have focused exclusively on jade or pottery production, overseen by skilled artisans whose crafts were passed down over generations. One of the most surprising features was the discovery of a large curved moat system encircling the main settlement. Its structure was too organized to be purely defensive. It likely served as a flood management system or symbolic boundary, separating sacred spaces from the profane. This concept of city as microcosm of heaven and earth is echoed later in Chinese cosmology. Some scholars now consider Shuanghuaishu as a critical missing link in Chinese prehistory. It bridges the gap between the Yangshao culture, 5000 to 3000 BCE, and the Longshan culture, 3000 to 1900 BCE, which gave rise to China's first dynasties. While Shuanghuaishu predates written records, its organization, symbols, and artifacts suggest a society already testing the limits of centralized power, religious authority, and elite control. Comparative DNA studies of human remains from the site are ongoing. Preliminary findings show genetic continuity with modern Han Chinese populations, suggesting that this early urban experiment may have left a legacy not just of stone and soil, but of people, whose descendants shaped dynasties to come. Unlike other Neolithic sites that seem isolated or ceremonial, Shuanghuaishu tells a fuller story of governance, labor, cosmology, community, and ancestral veneration. Each trench carved into the earth reveals choices made by real people, building something new in an age when most of the world was still nomadic. Today, as Henan officials and Chinese cultural agencies work to preserve and publicize the site, Shuanghuaishu has become a symbol of pride and origin. It is being integrated into the national narrative of Chinese civilization not as a footnote, but as a starting point. A reminder that long before the Great Wall, the Forbidden City, or Confucian Scrolls, there was a city in the soil where people came together to dream, to organize, and to believe. In a scientific community that often clings to established paradigms, occasionally a discovery comes along that challenges not only scientific norms, but our very understanding of Earth's history. One such discovery, widely debated and meticulously analyzed, centers around a fossilized dinosaur bone found in the arid badlands of Montana's Hell Creek Formation. This ancient bone, believed to belong to a ceratopsian dinosaur, contained a foreign object embedded deep within its dense femur. That object, an unmistakable fragment of what appears to be a primitive arrowhead. At first, paleontologists believed the object was an anomaly, perhaps a mineral deposit or an intrusive fragment that had worked its way into the fossil over time. But as researchers at a nearby university began testing the artifact with X-ray imaging, spectroscopy, and 3D modeling, they uncovered a shocking possibility. The object bore the unmistakable shape of an arrowhead, complete with symmetry, flaked edges, and a metallic signature that did not match the surrounding geology. Further metallurgical analysis suggested the artifact was composed of a copper-based alloy, remarkably similar to those produced in early human societies during the Bronze Age. Yet the dinosaur bone had been dated to the late Cretaceous period, over 65 million years ago. This temporal contradiction sent ripples through the scientific community. Either the dating methods were flawed beyond reconciliation, or this was evidence of a human-like presence in Earth's ancient past. an anachronism that defied explanation. One faction of scientists, adhering to mainstream interpretations, suggested a more rational explanation, that the arrowhead could have been introduced much later via a crack or disturbance in the fossil. However, sediment layering around the object showed no signs of modern intrusion. The mineral deposits on the arrowhead matched the fossilization process within the femur itself, indicating both had aged together through the same geological timeline. The implications were staggering. If the arrowhead was authentic and contemporary with the dinosaur, it meant either time travel, an unknown intelligent pre-human civilization, or an entirely new understanding of Earth's evolutionary record. This triggered a flurry of cross-disciplinary interest. Historians, anthropologists, and even theoretical physicists began weighing in. Theories flourished. Some proposed that an advanced civilization, perhaps existing millions of years ago and long since obliterated, may have developed rudimentary hunting tools. This civilization might have lived during or near the tail end of the dinosaur era and left behind sparse evidence due to geological recycling and tectonic erosion. Others posited the possibility of interdimensional interactions, or that time may not be as linear as modern science assumes. Even more controversial was the hypothesis that what we call dinosaurs might have coexisted with early humans or intelligent hominins. This idea, long relegated to fringe circles, gained new traction as more out-of-place artifacts, parts, were re-examined under modern scrutiny. Could this be a new paradigm emerging, one that rewrites the chapters of evolutionary history? Naturally, pushback was immense. Established institutions called for more rigorous peer review, while skeptics criticized the initial dating methods, suggesting contamination or misinterpretation. However, multiple independent labs repeated the dating with consistent results, placing both bone and fragment firmly in the Cretaceous. Documentaries and media coverage sensationalized the story, while academic journals approached it with guarded interest. Public fascination surged, with headlines touting proof of prehistoric humans and arrow through time. Social media erupted with debates between mainstream defenders and alternative historians. Still, the site where the bone was found underwent further excavation. Ground-penetrating radar revealed no signs of modern intrusion or recent burials. Nearby sedimentary layers even revealed trace fossils of what some believe to be bipedal tracks. Human-like in shape, but over 65 million years old. The prints were photographed, measured, and analyzed with no definitive conclusion. What remains clear is that this one anomalous arrowhead has stirred the pot of history. Whether it's eventually disproven, reframed, or accepted as authentic, it has sparked a wave of curiosity that compels further exploration. The fossil is now housed under tight security in a specialized preservation facility, undergoing long-term analysis with non-destructive methods. Regardless of the final verdict, discoveries like these remind us that history is not a static field. It evolves with new evidence, new methods, and a willingness to question what we think we know. If an arrow truly pierced the hide of a dinosaur, it might have also punctured the veil of time itself. Across continents and eons, whispers of forgotten truths echo beneath the soil, stone, and sea. From shattered timelines to impossible artifacts, history may not be what we've been told, but what we've yet to rediscover. Join us in rewriting the past, one discovery at a time.